How long do you think you could stay calm if nothing around you made sense? No danger, no threat, just confusion. Because scientists once tested this, and people broke faster than anyone expected. Welcome to Wired Weird, where real experiments are more disturbing than fiction. Because today, we're not talking about fear. We're talking about something worse: uncertainty. In the 1950s, at McGill University in Canada, psychologist Donald Hebb ran a series of experiments. The idea was simple: remove stimulation, remove structure, see what happens. Volunteers were paid to lie in small rooms for hours, sometimes days. They wore goggles that blurred vision, gloves that dulled touch, headphones that blocked sound. No phones, no conversations, no variation. Just silence and their own thoughts. At first it seemed easy, but within hours, something started to shift. Participants reported seeing flashes of light that weren't there, hearing voices, feeling like someone else was in the room. One described, "I felt like I was losing my grip on reality." Another said, "My thoughts didn't feel like mine anymore." Some begged to leave early, not because they were in pain, because their minds couldn't handle the lack of structure. And then came something even more unsettling. What happens when the world isn't silent, but unpredictable? In later behavioral studies, researchers began testing unpredictability instead of isolation. Tasks were designed where rules changed without warning. Effort didn't match outcome. Feedback was inconsistent or meaningless. Participants tried to adapt. They focused harder, tried new strategies, looked for patterns, but there were none. Slowly, frustration turned into something else: confusion, then anxiety, then something quieter. They stopped trying. Psychologist Martin Seligman studied this effect in the 1960s and 70s. At the University of Pennsylvania, he found that when subjects repeatedly experienced lack of control, they eventually stopped responding, even when escape became possible. This became known as learned helplessness. Not weakness, not laziness, but a brain that had learned nothing I do changes the outcome. When the brain loses predictability, it loses stability. It constantly asks, what happens next? If there's no answer, the brain enters threat mode, even without danger. That's when people begin to doubt their own decisions, second-guess reality, feel overwhelmed by simple choices. Not because they're incapable, because the system that makes sense of the world is failing. You don't need a lab for this. It happens in chaotic workplaces, strict systems with unpredictable punishment, environments where effort doesn't match reward. Over time, people don't burn out from pressure. They burn out from uncertainty. Humans don't just break under stress. They break when reality stops making sense. You don't need fear. You don't need pain. You just need to remove structure, control, predictability, and the mind begins to unravel. So the real question isn't, how strong are you? It's, how long can your brain function without understanding the world around it? If this made you uncomfortable, subscribe to Wired Weird. Send this to someone who says, I can handle anything. Because sometimes, it's not pressure that breaks you. It's not knowing what comes next.